If you don't know me well, I'm assuming if you're here, you do. But if you don't, hi, I'm Onça. I'm a witchy type lady living here in Richmond, Virginia. I'm also the artist and co-author of the World Spirit Tarot, which here it is. It is a traditional deck, so what the information I'm giving you is very much steeped in tarot traditions, and my deck was designed. I made it specifically in order to bring some focus on inclusivity and representation. That was really important to me 20 years ago, and I'm happy to say it's important to a lot of people now. So that's part of the focus in my deck. But you are welcome to work with whatever deck you might have in front of you. Incidentally, I will be re-releasing my deck in 2021. I realized it's the 20th anniversary. So I'll be coming out with a fancy new edition. But whatever deck you have to work with tonight is great. I intend to actually share 3 different decks with you as we go along. I'll be referring to mine, also to the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is a very traditional deck, probably the best known, most iconic deck of this century, and also the Light and Shadow Tarot. I just love that artwork. And also it has a very sort of whimsical and inclusive spirit. So I wanted to share some of that information with you. My last bit of sort of promotional palaver is that in 2022, I will be co-producing a witchy tour of Sicily, assuming we're all allowed to travel again, called Paths of the Goddesses. And that will be with the amazing, super rootsy, powerful writer and a witch celebrity, dare I say, Byron Ballard. So if we're allowed to go places, I encourage you to come places with us, because that will be an incredible trip. So that's 2022. To learn more about me, you can go learn stuff about my tarot jams at my swanky newish website, which is theworldspirittarot.com. I've got my other website, hardestworkingwomaninshowbusiness.com, that has all that other stuff. And again, I encourage you to go check out Byron Ballard. I believe her site is maybe myvillagewitch.com. She's the Village Witch of Asheville. Not sure. Anyway, so those are all things you can think about while you are getting your hands moving. I am assuming that in this class tonight, this class is intended to work on some fundamentals. I'm sure there are folks who have never worked with cards before. In fact, I know I have some decks going out in the mail for some new students this week. But that some of you are old hands at the cards, and this is just an opportunity to sort of re-marinate yourself in what is delicious and deep and symbolic and traditional and inspirational about the cards. So I will have to move pretty fast through the material, because even with an hour trying to get through, it's like speed dating with tarot. We're gonna have a quick get to know you with about 12 cards. There is a session afterwards at 8 o'clock that we'll be working on a separate topic. That one is about building a daily tarot practice. I encourage you to stay for that if you're so inclined. Next week, we're going to work on the rest of the majors, then we're going to work on minors. So we are covering, in these early sessions, these 7 o'clock sessions are intended to really move through fundamentals. I encourage you to ask questions in the chat. Again, I've got Ms. Clavin over here in the booth, and she will help to make sure that I get your questions in real time. Looks like there may be some questions coming in already.
7 o'clock, ready to go.
All righty, well, it is 7 o'clock, and we are ready to start. So, for anyone who doesn't know, the sort of care and feeding of tarot is a whole class unto itself. The culture of how we use our cards, how we get our cards, how we care for our cards. We can do some extensive work about that on another time. I will say, for folks who like parameters, it's good to know what are the rules with tarot. The good news is we're going to talk about this. The bad news is there are no rules. There are many traditions, and you do get to pick and choose. Maybe you learn, cards and reading, maybe you learned it from your grandmother, and there's a particular folk way that your family is a part of. You are welcome to lean into that. You also get to be part of this incredible rebirthing of the tarot that's happening right now, where all of these new sort of ways and means to work with the cards are sort of burgeoning. So you get to do what you want within a given value of Wheaton's Law, which is don't be a dick, which is always important to me with the cards. The willingness to question everything, and as far as tradition goes, but also move forward with respect for where things come from. I feel like that really sums up what you need. Other than that, it comes down to these fundamentals. Like, what does integrity look like when you're working with cards? Find a deck, you buy it, you acquire it, you do not steal it. Find a deck and a supporting text that you like. Maybe it's mine. Maybe it's one of the ones that gets referred to in this class. Maybe you've already had one gifted to you, or you found something through a wonderful wild synchronicity. Find a deck that works for you. And it may not be the first deck that you lay your hands on, but ethically acquire a deck and a great supporting text, something that is accessible to you. You can understand it without feeling like you have to get a black belt in metaphysics. It should be, that's why we call it kitchen witchy. It should be very accessible. You can be a great chef, or you can make a bagel. Tarot doesn't need to be complicated unless you want to make it that way. Second, if you have cards, treat them like any other tool. Keep them clean and dry. You can read on a velvet tablecloth, or you can read on a stump. That's fine too. You just want to make sure that you're conscious of where you're putting your tools and how you dry them and put them away. You want to spend time getting acquainted with your cards. The second class I'm doing tonight, which is about building a daily tarot practice, that's very much about laying that foundation. Maybe you're not a person who has that much time, but like any skill, whether it's language, music, dance, in fact, cooking, the more time that you put into it, then the more facility you're going to experience. So if you spend some time with the cards, getting to know them, developing your own sort of your ways with it, it will show you many returns. And last of all, I would say working with the cards, it is very important that when you sit down to actually read, when you sit down to study, when you sit down to meditate or work on any of the other extended techniques that may come up in our classes, attempt to clear your mind of distraction. Attempt to clear your mind of ego attachment. Just sit down to do the work. The mantra that I give myself whenever I'm reading for other people is to say, please allow me to be a conduit, a useful conduit of information for this person. And if you make it that instead of, oh my God, make me look cool, oh my gosh, I hope that I get a big fat paycheck at the end of this event, try to put all those things aside and remember that you are there in service to the person and to the tradition. So set all that stuff aside. The last thing I wanted to talk about as far as rulesiness today, I really want to get into working with the majors. As far as storage goes, again, like any tool, just think about how you want to do that. You can store things in a velvet bag. You can store them in a silk bag. I have one of my decks is stored in an old codfish box from when I was a kid. You can keep it in a waterproof koozie, whatever you need to do. You just want to make sure that your tools are being cared for and where you can get to them. If you have questions and comments about all that, or anything that you would love me to cover in a future class when we talk about that care feeding and sort of hygiene of cards, I'm happy to address it. Again, just jot it down there, and the Maven of Information will make sure that I get that. Now, also, Carmel, if you would just help me be aware of the time, that would be great. So we're going to talk about the major cards today. If you've got your deck, we're going to take a minute to talk about them overall, and then we're just going to walk through them. Again, it's a bit of a speed date. We're going to be going 0 through 12. In a basic tarot deck, a traditional deck has 5 different suits. Some might even say 6, but we're going to say 5 for the moment. That are those ones with the minor arcana. That's something like cups, something like blades, something like discs or pentacles, and something like wands. There's all those. I think of those as the cards that are here to help us sort out our day-to-day sort of laundry list. Like the things that we need to do, that we need to manage in our day-to-day lives. The major arcana, these being, again, the Fool, the Death card, the Lovers, all the ones that show up in the movies, those cards generally describe the big narrative arc of your life. If your story were to be written down as a screenplay, the minors describe the sort of plot points, but the majors describe the big arc, that is the through line of the movie of your story, if you want to think about it that way. So majors are what we're really here to work with today. I tend to say, like, what are you here to learn? Or, what do these cards have to teach you? Mystical language can easily sound predeterminist, as if your fate, you're learning your fortune, you're peeling back the layers to see what your fate has been determined. I don't believe that that's how our lives are constructed, but I do observe that while we have lots of free will and choice, we are all, of course, functioning according to our own understanding of the universe, our own influences and, our socioeconomic status, our own experiences. So the cards are here to tell you what you are likely to do based on the person that you are. If you don't like those cards, if you don't like what they're telling you, I firmly believe that you have the opportunity to make change in your life. Just want to say that we're not Calvinists. We don't think that it is not written. It is suggested. And from here, we get to execute our free will, moving into that realm of personal freedom, which also, of course, can be chaos. So again, questions, let me know. Staying hydrated is an important part of the trade. Now we are going to talk about the Fool card. As you perhaps know, the Fool is, by most accounts, it is the first card in the deck, first card of the majors, and it is usually labeled as 0. It exists outside the numerical system. I never really understood why, in spite of having read about it, until I went into a relationship with my partner, who, having won an international jester competition, not only is he a juggler, but he was actually the fool of an actual castle, as he says, in actual England. And, that's a crazy sentence, but I didn't really understood what it meant. Back in the day, not only when there were jesters in the traditional sense, but also when these cards came into their sort of European heyday, the jester functioned outside the social order. That is why the king had a jester. It was a person who could say, I exist outside the social structure, therefore I'm allowed to poke fun at the mighty. I can be with the people, meaning I can be with the common people. I can transgress all borders and move into the liminal space. And that is why it was so unusual. Like a jester could become a very powerful person or be a total doofus. And we see that with the Fool card. It is typically represented as some iteration of that traditional jester. In some of the really old decks, it's actually called the jongleur, which literally means juggler. So here's the traditional version. I'm going to hold it up and hopefully you can see it. I can't see. Carmel, can they see? Yes, excellent. So here's a traditional. This is the Rider-Waite-Smith, also known as the Rider-Waite deck. Some of you have perhaps heard me speak on the subject of this artist before, who's a very important artist. But generally, it's some version of a person carrying a bindlestiff, which is the little hobo bundle, they have some sort of companion animal, usually a dog or a butterfly. Typically, they're about to step off a cliff. In some of the really old versions of this, their pants are down and the dog is actually leaping up and biting them in the testicles. So that says a lot about there's sort of a capricious, whimsical quality to this card, and sometimes it also means getting bit in the ass. So there's that version. I'll talk a little bit more about its meaning in a second. You can see here, again, this is the light and shadow deck. It's a little sticky, which I love. Can you see that one too? Great. Again, you'll see many variations. In fact, Llewellyn, the publisher, did a compilation calendar that was just Fool cards, which I was happy that that my card was in. It was just great to flip through and see everybody's different representation. I know some of you may have my deck, and there's that one. Again, you can see it was important to me right out the gate to say, why does the Fool always got to be a skinny guy? It can be all kinds of people. We all go through the Fool. What the Fool means when it comes up in a reading is that you are entering uncharted territory in your personal journey. It is the time to dare to do something new, living fully in the present moment. In general, when the Fool card comes up, it is an auspicious time to make a leap of faith. Again, metaphysical language gets a little squirrely, but I usually say, the universe wants to support you in this time. It's like Indiana Jones is about to step out onto that bridge and he has to just believe by faith that it's there. That's how it is for the Fool. It's like they're just ready to go for it. It is a card that suggests this is a time when you can courageously flout convention in pursuit of your dreams and make a fresh start with some optimism in your heart. I hope we all get this card in the next few months because this autumn has already begun to feel like a bit of a slog. So, there's a beautiful deck based on the Greek myths called the Mythic Tarot. The art is pretty good, but I have to say the book is exceptional. Again, the Mythic Tarot, and that author, whose name is Juliet Sharman Burke, what she sums this card up to say, to not to begin is to deny the gods. So when this card comes up, it's saying it's a great time to move forward. So The Fool. Now, the Fool, stepping from that sort of naivete to, I'm sure it'll all work out, we come to the Magician. Boo, boo, boo. Again, this is the Rider-Waite version, kind of the traditional sort of alchemist. We're thinking this is more of a metaphysical magician than a stage magician. They have all of the sort of tools of the tarot are in front of them. There's typically a wand and a sword and a pentacle, and that magician represents your effort to move forward in this situation in a spirit of mastery. You are attempting to master all of the different elements. So that is, cups speak to coming to grips with effective communication and a healthy feeling. Pentacles are about learning to take care of resources and stuff. So when the Magician card comes up, here's my version. Again, we see this notion of you have all the tools you need to take action. It's time to learn to really get some mastery of them. Another way to think of it is the Fool is like the toddler who's just kind of got a handle of walking. The Magician is the one who says, aha, now I know how to not only walk, but I know how to run. I know how to use doorknobs. It is about becoming autonomously powerful and able to explore the world with your intellect, with your spirit. Great communication skills. It's all that good stuff. As my wonderful tarot teacher, Kate Nordstrom, used to say, remember that truly clever people are not afraid to accept good counsel. So the Magician is definitely not only about finding your will and enacting it, but also about bringing in the best influences that the world has to offer. So after the Magician, we come to the Priestess. Now here we see the traditional presentation of her. Here she is between her pillars. It's B and J stand for Boaz and Joaquin. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but those apparently were the names of the pillars in Solomon's temple. As a kid, I always thought it stood for Ben and Jerry's because with the pomegranates behind her, that's what it made me think of, like delicious fruity sorbet. So we see her here. She's holding a scroll. Everything about her sort of mystical but in an institutional way. Here we see a bit more of the Light and Shadow has a bit more of a psychedelic presentation of her. The High Priestess embodies everything that is sort of most mystical in our psyches: wisdom, insight, dreams. When you get a premonition, when you get a sensation in your gut, and you have a real feeling that you need to lean into understanding the instincts that you have. When she comes up in a reading, she's really calling on you to listen to spirit, whatever that is for you in your life. Again, intuition, maybe it's dream work. It can refer to unseen elements and secretive motives at work in a situation. But in general, I think of her as a real ally. Oh, and in my case, my original one was, I wanted the priestess to be skyclad. The original version of this, she was standing in like sort of a cold Arthurian temple. And I thought, my high priestess is out in the Cathedral of the Trees. So I moved her outside. Now we come to the Empress. Again, I know I'm talking fast. The good news is there'll be recording of this so that you can listen to everything again later. Slow it down and make notes if you need to. But today, I just want to make sure that I get you all the information that I can. Now, after the High Priestess, we come to the Empress. The shorthand around here for the Empress is tiramisu and avocados and luxury and healthy fats. So here is the Empress. She is the great provider. You might think of her as like the Mother Earth. She might almost be like the great sort of archetype of the mother, like the Venus of Willendorf and all of the sort of wonderful figures of fecundity, not just physical fecundity, because we're not in some meritocracy of reproduction, but rather, abundance in all of its best forms. When this card comes up, it talks about magnetism, generosity, charisma, comfort food. It's your chicken dumpling soup when it's cold, if that's your jam. She speaks to spa day, being willing to luxuriate in the comforts of the world and take care of yourself. Many of us inherited this tradition in the West of sort of loathing the flesh, and we alternatingly go back and forth between hating ourselves and treating our bodies like worthless tools and then feeling bad and overindulging. She really suggests that you just develop a healthy culture of like self-adoration. And like when you really need to eat the tiramisu, eat the tiramisu. Yeah, she wants you to take pleasure in your body. And my theory is that if we learn to take pleasure in our bodies, we'll also do a better job of taking care of the earth as an extension of that. So once again, we see her going from sort of a throne in abundance. And here's my lady. If you look close enough, there's even an avocado in there because I really wanted that sense of like, it's right there. You could just pick it up and nibble it. So the Empress says, take care of yourself. I mean, everything is very serious, but that doesn't mean that you can't like, you know, you don't have to pick the hardest way. Now, her sort of, if she represents everything that is nurturing and comforting and, you know, she is the feathered nest. Her sort of balanced companion in the deck is the Emperor. So we see here, bum, 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 bum. Here he is. He tends to look very severe. The Emperor tends to come up, while he is in himself, he is a good card. He has plenty to offer. He does come up when folks have father issues or, you know, would like to burn down the patriarchy because he represents infrastructure. Now, infrastructure, that means, you know, libraries that work and, you know, bridges that don't fall down and so forth. That's all great. You know, that is order to chaos in a good way. But at its worst, it represents, oh, I don't know, fascism. And control and a hyper martial state. So, you know, essentially he describes somewhere in that continuum from I built these things to take care of you to I built these things to control you. And so, you know, it's all of our challenge, of course, now, as in every point in history, but especially now, is to find our relationship with that notion of how much is enough? How much is a good mix? When this card comes up, it asks you to deeply consider your relationship to laws versus justice, ethics, privilege, individuality, you know, versus what's good for the group. I mean, we could spend the whole time talking about the struggles that America's having with that right now around individualism, the rights of the individual versus the good of society. He is everything about that question. Dominion over the self is necessary, but dominion over others is not, as my co-author, Jessica Godino, wrote. So there's the Emperor. Here is the light and shadow version. This one, it looks a little bit more like he is presiding over some sort of Saturnalian version of society. There's still structure in there, but it looks a little bit more like he's about to throw Mardi Gras beads, which I'm for. And I will say, here's my version. I struggled with making this card because as an artist and as a person, I had all of those issues. You know, I had a lot of struggle as an individualist with authority and so forth. So this card was challenging for me to make. He's not the bad guy, but he can be the worst guy. Now, which brings us to the Hierophant. Funny story. So my deck's been in print for 20 years now in various forms. And it was just called to my attention for anyone who bought the new edition. I didn't spell Hierophant right. So for the record, it's H-I-E-R as in hierarchy, not H-E-I-R as in heir to the throne. Huh. Crazy. So here it is spelled properly. But what is a Hierophant, you ask? Because of course, no spell check caught it because it's not a word we ever use outside the context of tarot. The Hierophant is essentially the Pope. And by extension, since modern academia is based on, you know, the Western monastic tradition, this speaks to systems of information and how do I want to put it? It's systems of learning that come down through hierarchy and tradition. So when this card comes up, in the modern era, usually what the Hierophant is referring to is something like going back to school, higher education, you know, deepening your training in like a structured, formal way. So that Hierophant is really about, you can see in most of the images, there's somebody is kneeling at the feet of the authority figure. You know, and there's times and places when that level of please fill me, I am a vessel waiting information is appropriate. Again, some people find this card very troubling because they aren't keen to be told what to do. But this is the card that comes up when you're ready to expand your knowledge by absorbing other people's wisdom. It's bringing together, the inner spirit and outer learning. It's laws and culture. It is esoteric wisdom. It's academic wisdom. So if you are willing to let yourself be in that position, there's so much to learn there. But of course, you always have to be measured in these decisions. Now, we are jumping from the Hierophant. Here our little toddler they've learned to walk, they've learned to run, they've learned to manipulate doorknobs, they've interacted with figures in their life, paternal figures, maternal figures. They've learned about society as a whole. The kid finally goes to school. Well, now they must be hitting puberty, because here the Fool card comes to the Lovers. Now, to be fair, I make that joke, but to be fair, back in the day, the Lovers card was often also the twins. So it's not an explicitly sexual or erotic card. It does talk about ourselves in relation to others. It's about partnership. It's about balance. It's about union in the broadest sense. If you get the Lovers card in a reading and the question was about sexuality or romance or union, it probably is speaking to those aspects, but you can get it relative to a completely non-romantic or non-erotic setting. And that context, it's typically more about balance. It's about building meaningful connections. It's about not losing yourself in your relationships with other people, whether it's in your family, your partnership, work. It's very much about leaning into having your feelings, but not losing it. So there's the Pamela Coleman Smith version. Not my favorite. But that's fine. I'm working on another tarot-related project for my Patreon people right now, and I wanted to do something that was traditional, but I still had to really rework this image in order to feel great about it. There's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and there's some snake shaming in there and some angels. Not my favorite, but she had a reason for drawing it that way at the time. I do enjoy the way that the Light and Shadow does it. It's almost Klimty, and it reminds me of The Kiss, except without all that luxurious fabric. Instead, it's all this luxurious flesh. And here's my version. I wanted to make sure that it was very gender ambiguous. Some tarot decks, as you're looking for, if you're out there looking for, other decks that you really like, some decks make a choice to heteronormatize the couple and make them, male and female. A deck that I really like, the Cosmic Tribe. Yeah, that's what it's called. Some really good, it's probably 20 years old, also great art. And that one solves that gender issue by offering you 3 Lovers cards. There's a he, she, a he, and a she. So that if it is a romantic question, you can choose to feed that card into the deck so that the person, yourself, or the querent, client, whatever, sees themselves reflected. Representation really matters in society. So that's how they dealt with it. In my case, I just tried to make it as ambiguous as possible. Who is who and what was what. And also here we see Pan and Kuan Yin up in the corners representing passion and also compassion. The passion that you might feel in your loins, or the fire in your gut, and then also, what you might feel in your heart that may allow you to temper some of your other choices. So when the Lovers come up, give of yourself without losing yourself. Self-acceptance and knowledge are really essential. It's easier for other people to love you if you have some love for yourself. And that, of course, is a challenge. It's a challenge that you can embark on for your whole lifetime. Speaking of movement and voyages and journeys, we're going to jump into the Chariot card. This is, I think, the only card in the deck that describes it's not a virtue such as strength or justice. It's not a person, such as the priestess or so forth. It's a thing. It is the Chariot. And my teacher Kate used to describe this as all dressed up and not sure where to go. It's like there's a person is all gussied up in their finest armor. Clearly they're wearing their ceremonial good time stuff, and they've got these 2 wild sphinx sort of mythical beasts ready to pull them around. When it comes up a lot of times, it's like you're in the driveway of your own decisions and you've got one foot on the brake and the other is on the gas, and you're trying to get yourself to a point where you take one of those feet off to make a choice. You are fully revved and fully contained. So when it comes up, it's about giving yourself permission to move forward, trying to employ some steering, because of course these 2 creatures want to tear off in any old direction. In most versions of this, again, here's the light and shadow version. In most versions, those mystical creatures that represent your impulses or your possibilities are generally pointing two different ways. So you have to, they suggest symbolically that you may need to rein in and make some choices. Yeah, it awaits your focused hands on the reins. So there's my version with the pretty mythic beasts. Again, representation. I just didn't need my tarot decks to be full of straight, white, thin, rich people. So I wanted to spice it up like our actual lives. Yeah, the chariot usually comes up around decisions and getting out of your own way. Let's put it that way. Now we come to one of the cards that is named for virtues. We come to the Strength card. In a number of the old iterations of the Strength card, you would see, Hercules like tearing the lion's head off. Then it has gradually evolved over time as, I would say, subculturally, if that's the right word, I would say that an alternative model of strength has grown in our times. The tarot is an evolving art. If you look at it, at the artwork itself and the virtues it extols over centuries, they change, thank goodness. We don't want to live in the world that the tarot came out of. It has had to change in order to stay with us. So the old strength was, I tore your head off. This strength is much more about co-arising, as we say. It's about power with. So here we see, she's not tearing the lion's head open. She appears to be like, it's almost like the crocodile's toothbrush. Like she's going in there to help out. She is not having to force this creature. She's clearly at peace with it. So it's much more about the kind of strength that comes from being centered, being compassionate. Where's my strength card in this one? Duh. Are you here? Oh, I'm not sure where it is in this deck. I'll have to look for it. Must have scooched along. But here's mine. Boop. So you can see even further, we see increasingly this shift towards it being more about being in your power and having good things flow out from that rather than forcing your will on others. Also, in this one, there's a little mouse. And that little mouse, to me, sort of central to all this action. There's all this power, there's all this intention, lions are formidable, this woman is so fierce, and the mouse is just like, humans got to make things everything so hard. Why you make it so hard? All right, and now I think we've got maybe 4 more cards I'm hoping to do, and then we're going to open it up for questions. Again, if you have any, drop them in the chat. It looks like Carmel maybe has a list of some already down there for me. So where are we now? We are at we're at the 7:30. Thank you so much. Great, thank you so much. Thank you, 15. So we've come to the Hermit. Now the Hermit, classic. It could be Gandalf, it could be Dumbledore. The mystic on the mountain. When the Hermit comes up, it asks you to turn away from ordinary things for a time. Now, we are all hermits right now. Even folks who have very busy essential worker jobs out in the world, still find themselves somewhat isolated. So I was doing a corporate gig for, I want to say Capital One or Bank of America, maybe in February, and everybody, I would say 80% of the people that I read for, the bankers that I read for, got the Hermit, and we were all like, I wonder why. I wonder what that's about. Turns out we were all going off into our personal hermitage very soon, and we just didn't know it. So when the Hermit comes up, it suggests that you make the most of the time that you can get for yourself and seek the voice of the divine within. If you're mystically inclined, it may mean you're really leaning into your meditation or leaning into your yoga or whatever your jam is, leaning into your Reiki. It may mean working with a guide or a mentor. Sometimes the Hermit isn't just the journey that you're on, but it's also you finding a person to work with. Whereas the Hierophant speaks to the tradition of, joining with a group into a group endeavor, that is going to the yoga camp as compared to working with, with a coach. And, of course, for many of us, the Hermit is a very singular experience. It is that walk that you take every day where, it looks like you're out walking the dog, but you are also taking some time for yourself to make your own path and have a little bit of personal time. In finding your own way, often also you may be blazing a path for others. So the Hermit suggests that the work that you may need to do for yourself also can do great things in the world. There it is. Aha. Here we see the Hermit. So here's the light and shadow version. This person apparently has used their time to grow a tremendous beard. It's like 8 feet long. And then here's mine. It's very much, when it comes up, sometimes the question isn't just, can you get some time to yourself? But I often wonder, are you the person who is seeking the sage on the mountaintop, or are you the person who needs to function and offer some guidance to others? Is there somebody in your life who's saying, I just need somebody to talk to in these times? So that's the Hermit. Now we come, I misspoke. The chariot is not the only object that is spoken of in the tarot, because of course there is also the Wheel of Fortune. Also, she is Donna Fortuna, Lady Luck. She's big around here. So when the Wheel of Fortune comes up, this is a truly strangely drawn card. Big changes afoot when this card comes up. There's unknown factors that work in your situation. Challenge and victory ride right on each other's heels, so you may feel like everything is spinning around rather fast. Sometimes it suggests if everything is going your way, it may sound a note of warning that you may have a little bit of a reversal of fortune coming your way, but it also can mean if you're down in the dumps, things are likely to improve. Cultural norms change, economies rise and fall. Just this card counsels you to try to find some poise and be ready to step when it is a good time for you to take action. When this card comes up often, I think of it's almost like the magic 8 ball, like ask again later. Like, I feel like it's always describing that there's so much, there's so many pieces at work here that it's almost like you wish that you could zoom in and get a little more information. And sometimes, in fact, I will. If this card comes up, say in a spread of 3, and you'll go, okay, that all makes sense. Maybe I need to, pull 3 more cards just about this Wheel of Fortune and try to, ask for some more specificity, because there's a lot at work in this card. This is another one where I used the opportunity to try to fit in all of my other people. So once again, we see, and there's the Patronus in the background. Wheel of Fortune. All right. And now, look. All right, we're going to jump back for a second. Here's the Strength card that jumped out. There's the Strength card. Isn't that beautiful? This is the one I couldn't find earlier. These cards are so beautiful, but a little sticky cardstock. Yeah. In this case, she, it's like, technically she has this lion on a leash, but it is clearly more of an accord than a domination, which is really what that card is about. Okay, so we are jumping from the Wheel of Fortune. We're going to go to Justice, and then to the Hanged Man, and then open up the floor for questions. Also, in some decks, there's a tradition. Okay, tarot tradition being hundreds and hundreds of years old, some of the old decks have many more cards, or less cards, or slightly different cards. Some of the old cards, instead of a priestess, have a lady pope. Like, again, everything is sort of flexed, to sort of suit the ideology and the prevailing mythology of the times. One of the things that happened about 80 years ago is that a couple of the cards moved around. Sometimes you'll see Strength and Justice are in different locations in the deck. They have swapped. That can all be traced back to a particular deck called the Thoth Tarot. So that's a whole other discussion for another day. That's why the Strength card had wandered around, because now we're coming to the Justice card, which in many decks, but not all, is number 9. The Justice card, right here, kind of straightforward. It is a classic iconography of, justice is blind. Also, I don't know if you have seen in the wake of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing, an artist redid this image as exactly in the style with RBG, and it's really great. Like, I recommend it for anybody who, cares about actual justice in the actual world. It's a beautiful piece of art. But here we see the traditional justice. They've got the scale, they've got the swords. They are here, typically the pillars behind any of these old images represents that they are sort of speak for society. They're acting on behalf of, the structured things of humanity as compared to the wilds. So when justice comes up in a reading, it has commonly two messages, one or the other for you. To me, it always asks, what side of the sword are you going to be found on when the truth is out? Are you, like, you may be a person who's able to function within the law and yet be a person who's functioning without ethics. It doesn't tell you which to do. Justice is blind, but it does ask you to consider, where do you fall in that spectrum? Sometimes it means you're going to be called upon to make a big decision that you will be judged on. And most interestingly, I have seen this where this card speaks to the speedy resolution of a lingering legal or ethical matter. Like somebody who'd been waiting forever to get their green card, bam, this card comes up. It's to say, yes, you finally have permission to legally be where you are. Custody battle, the settling of a speeding ticket, like it tends to come up to say things are being resolved and typically in your favor. So yay, justice. I love this version. She is still stately and yet like is really enjoying being a vehicle for for fairness and sorting things out. So it's such a beautiful, beautiful card. When it comes up, I would suggest generally be honest, because falsehoods and denials eventually will be found out. Here's my version, a little bit more in the institutional. Justice. Okay, and now we come to the final card we're going to do today. Again, there are 22 major cards, so we are moving fast. I am happy to answer any questions now or later if it takes you a while to formulate them. We're coming to the Hanged Man. I thought this would be a nice card to end on. It's so iconic. And it is, whereas justice is a concept that exists outside the tarot, in pop culture, we really see the Hanged Man. Again, it's one of those cards that shows up, in the movies, dun, 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 usually in some crazy context. If anyone's a fan of The Ninth Gate, of course, there's some Hanged Man iconography in that great film. Here's the traditional version. There is a prevailing theory that perhaps the original Hanged Man card was just an accidental misprint and that they had actually just literally printed it upside down. Tarot scholars think that they have tracked down that is not the case, and it was always intended to be an upside down person. You'll notice this person is not hanged by their neck. It's not violent. They are hanged by their ankle. This card has a lot of really deep and timeless symbolism. Here's a kind of campy version. This guy has a lot going on with his very exciting pants. Oh yeah, and this one has no pants at all. Here's this version. What all iterations of the Hanged Man card have in common? This, on the one hand, it is a representation of the near universal image of the dying and reborn God. So we see it with, Jesus, we see it with Osiris, we see it with, I want to say, Odin, the fellow who hung himself from the ankle from the yew tree from Yggdrasil in order to bring runes back to the world so that humans would be given the gift of language. He did that on purpose. He didn't just fall into an awkward situation and save the day by coming back with something. It was a Promethean feat of sacrifice. So with this dying and reborn God, what we see in this, we see a person who has, once again, this guy is not in trouble. He's clearly doing some sort of like inverted aerial yoga. This card comes up to describe short-term sacrifice for long-term benefit. When this is in a reading, sometimes it means literally that you're all hung up, like you don't have all the information or you don't have all the agency in order to be free to move forward in your own vision or your own version of events. So sometimes it's just like the first level of interpretation is just that you're sort of tied up in things. But the deeper level is that there's something where, yes, you may have to eat ramen for 2 years, but at the end of it, you've got your doctorate. It may be, doing the long, hard internship in order to land the job. It may be just everything that is the sacrifice of parenting. It's a lot of hard work. for what you believe is a long-term greater good. So this card speaks to that notion of meaningful sacrifice. It's not meaningless sacrifice. It's not I hung upside down indefinitely and nothing good came of it. It is I picked a path knowing the challenges. I embraced the challenges. I endured the challenges, and I came away not just, things that are hard make you stronger, but I came out with the result that I wanted. I went into the underworld and I came out with the goods. So the hangman really speaks to going into a challenging situation, to choosing that. I will say it can sometimes come up to say that you are, or the querent, it can sometimes come up to say, make sure that you are doing something because the contract is clear. I do these things, I get my degree. I do these things, my kid gets to go to their college of choice. Rather than because you are a habitual martyr. It can be a card of real codependence. But I did all this suffering for you, and now you owe me. I didn't ask you to do that. So beware. Beware of the codependency that can be this card. But at its truest, it is definitely about leaning into the dark as part of a quest. A quest as part of a lust of result. So that's the Hanged Man. I did show you all the pictures, right? Yes. It's such a great image. Okay, so that takes us through a little bit about the majors. What are they? They are your large, big life questions, trying to sort themselves out in cards. How do you do that? Try to be clear about the questions that you're asking when you go into the cards, and try to be honest and receptive to the answers they give you, even if they point out some of your challenges. We've gotten through just these 13 cards. Next time we will be able to follow through to the end and cover some of the crazy ones, some of the exciting dark brethren, the death card, the tower card, the devil card, and so forth. What kind of questions do we have in the few minutes that are remaining? And I want to thank you all so much for being attentive during all of this chatting and ranting. I can see there's a bunch of stuff in the chat, Carmel. Can you?
Those are links that I've dropped.
Oh, okay, great.
There are no questions.
Okay, great. Does anybody have any questions for me? I'm happy to chat for a few more minutes, but I'm sure you may have something in your mind. One of the things you can do as you get your own deck and you get your hands on it, I invite you to take the major cards from 0 to 21, and in most decks, they are numbered. If you have a deck where they're not numbered, that's totally fine. Just look it up on the internet and find a list or some book that you may have will lay them out for you. But usually they're going to go from something like the Fool to something like the World or the Universe card, something like that. I encourage you to lay them all out and follow. Go into your dream mind, relax your thinking and just look through them as if it was a graphic novel. That is often referred to as the fool's journey. Again, if you think about that toddler, they learn to walk, they learn to run, they learn about people, they learn about the ways of the world, they learn about love, they learn about loss, they learn about addiction, betrayal, finding your true purpose in life, etc., etc. That whole story is depicted in those major cards. There is a theory, which I can not verify, but this way you'll know about it. Not only is this the Fool's Journey, which is a sort of interesting archetypal adventure, but there is a theory that that story is such the human archetypal adventure that when the libraries were burned in Alexandria, that as much of that sort of esoteric knowledge as possible was distilled into those images, and that you can pull out a lot of the sort of wisdom of the ages from those 22 cards. I can neither confirm nor deny that, but you will certainly come across that in some text somewhere. So spend some time just wandering through that. I like to say it's, the original graphic novel is just that story of a person going on their life journey. And also, by the way, if you have been working with the cards and they start to feel sort of energetically goopy, one of the things that you can do is that you can reset all of your cards. There's some things you can do. You can, put them in the moonlight. You can put them with salt and crystals, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do. The simplest sort of energetic reset is to restack all the cards. And that's going to be starting there: ace, I'm sorry, a Fool, Magician, Priestess, Empress, stack all of those and then do the same thing all the way through the minors. And that's going to help to reset the energy of your entire deck and sort of shake off the cooties of all the folks and questions that you might have been working with, so that they'll be fresh and clean for you the next time you sit down to do your work. Hopefully for your tarot a day practice, which we're going to talk about in the class at 8 o'clock.
Can you speak briefly to the ambivalent powers of the Justice card?
I can. In fact, I'd like to say something about the ambivalence of all of the cards. Even a card like the Death card or the Tower card or the Lover's card, none of the cards in the deck is all good or all bad. Every one of these cards expresses, in theory, 78 cards, the fullness of human experience. In theory, every aspect: love, loss, betrayal, mystical enlightenment, a bad day at the office. In theory, all of these things are encapsulated by the cards. So any card is going to have its upsides and its downsides, or as we describe it in the book for the World Spirit Tarot, it is the gift and the shadow of it. So you're going to find both aspects. In the Justice card, generally when it comes up, it speaks to being on the right side of the law, being vindicated by legal systems, sort of coming out with your nose clean, or at least knowing that you were doing the right thing. Like maybe you got arrested at a protest, and being arrested doesn't feel cool, but you know that you were doing the right thing by standing up to injustice. Therefore, you are in the position of justice, even if you are the one in the slammer. So the Justice card usually speaks to things going your way, either in the real world or on an ethical level. I do feel that when the Justice card comes up, it asks you to ask yourself where you are. Are you justifying bad behavior? You know, because you hate that neighbor over there, and therefore it's fine if you keep, you know, parking in their handicapped parking spot because they're terrible people? Or are you just justifying bad behavior? The Justice card might pop up and ask you to really consider, if it wasn't between you and that person, but between you and the entity, the deity that is justice, would you be like, yeah, I'm in the right? Or do you be like, sorry, ma'am? Justice asks you to consider. Does that?
Asks,
Yes.
Remind me about how they should be gifted with the sender's birth color. My first deck came from you, and I remember there was an orange ribbon on them.
Oh, well, I have to say that is something I don't know about, but I'm fully in support of that adventure. Are you saying that that the ribbon that was wrapped around it was like for their astrological sign or their birth month or something like that? If so, I would say that is an adorable idea of correspondences, but it's certainly not required. I mean, you can pick them up off the shelf, you know, in the thrift store, or, you know, at the Barnes and Noble, or at your local witch market. And they're just as much yours, whether they have been, you know, lovingly wrapped or not. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I love that idea, but it's not something that I know about. There are a tremendous amount of, again, the tarot evolves, and there's a lot of sort of myths that have created around the tarot in this century. Some of them have to, something like one is that you should steal your deck. Please don't steal your deck. Whoever came up with that was not fully in touch with compassion, empathy for artists, or the law. Like, don't steal your deck. But somewhere along the way, that became like the cool subversive thing to do. Another thing is that you should never buy a deck. You have to wait for someone to give it to you. Well, maybe that made sense when there were only 15 decks, you know, kinds of deck in the world. At this point, there are thousands and thousands of artisanal decks in the world, and you want to find the deck that you love, find the deck that speaks to you, and do that. So there's lots of cool, there's lots of things that have evolved around the tarot, and some of them are great, and some of them you can feel free to let go, right? So if that makes sense. Okay, I think we're out of time. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be back in the same bat channel in 10 more minutes in order to do the tarot, building a tarot practice for the everyday. I'm super excited about that topic because I just spent 60 days in a row working with tarot cards, and I look forward to talking to you then. Thank you all so much, and bye-bye.